Hi, this is my 7th devlog, which will be looking at the latest game mechanic I added, math blocks. In this game, the player will need to know some level of algebra. I wanted to avoid just showing algebra as algebra, since moving around numbers doesn't exactly integrate well with the rest of the game. Instead, I wanted to show math in a way as cleverly as 3 Blue 1 Brown shows it in his first video. Here, he shows mathematical operations as transformations of the entire number line. Addition and subtraction slide the number line left and right, and multiplication and division scale it up and down, stretching the entire number space. Non-linearly scaling the entire game world based on an equation sounds interesting, but difficult to manipulate and explain to the player. What I ended up adding to my game works very similarly, but on a more localized scale. These number blocks have tabs for add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Dropping a block on the tab will apply the operation between both blocks. This lets the player rearrange some of the geometry of the level in a way that is limited by their understanding of four-function math. While this achieves my goal of making the math an actual part of gameplay, it is limited to editing in circuit mode, meaning the player will always just be standing still while manipulating blocks, and this leaves the math blocks more loosely integrated than I would like. The ability to knock math blocks out of the grid, which I haven't implemented yet, move them around and push them into other grids where they can be manipulated in circuit mode again, gives the system enough complexity that I can build large puzzles around them, but I would prefer a little more direct interactivity. Currently, the only end result of moving blocks is making and removing paths. It's not bad for a level, but if I want to use this more in the late game level design, it will need more interesting implementations. A problem for another time though. The majority of this month was spent making logic circuits slightly better. This involved switching to binary save files, adding the ability to lock gates and wires so players can only edit the ones I want them to, and improving the scripts I use to draw circuits. A minor improvement this month is that I made the on-screen log look a little bit nicer, and while I was working on development tools, I also created an arbitrary class array displayer. This reads an array of any class type and displays every variable in that class, making it much easier to see exactly what's going on under the hood in some of my more complicated scripts. Far better than debug.log or updating public variables in the inspector like I've been doing for years now. For example, I had an issue where quickly adding and removing the same block multiple times would stack applications of the block until it stretched to infinity. Logging the block classes, I could see that only the last operator added was being removed when I picked the block back up. Logging the operator class, I could see the reason. So, operators are not removed the instant you pick them up. They animate from 100% to 0% effect on the block they were acting on and are then deleted. They use the same variable to animate from 0 to 100% when applied. The only difference is whether the animation direction is set to 1 or -1, and by slowing the game to 5%, I could easily see in the class viewer only the newest operator was ever set to -1. This was caused by the script that set blocks to be removed, not checking if they were already being removed and just grabbing the first instance of the block in question. It was a simple problem, but the previous ridiculous opacity of the system I built made it a problem I would only see if I reread the whole script and happened to notice the oversight. After this, I'm beginning to realize the importance of writing scripts that just make my life easier, even if they won't be in the finished game. I have most of November scheduled for level design, so come back next month for a quick recap of whatever I made when I got stuck while working on that. See you then.